What was it like to live in America in the 1980s? Imagine a scene where the streets buzz with the sounds of synthesizers and distorted guitars, neon lights glowing on the sidewalks, and the promise of the American dream feeling more alive than ever. America in the 1980s was a land of vibrant contrasts, where nostalgia and innovation stood side by side, and dreams seemed within everyone's reach. Yet, beneath the surface, social challenges and political tensions were about to explode. The 80s were an era when the technological revolution started to take shape, while echoes of the Cold War still echoed in everyday conversations. At the same time, people's daily lives were marked by the rise of new lifestyles, the pursuit of happiness in an expanding consumer market, and the ongoing struggle for civil rights that had yet to be fully achieved. If you had walked the streets of the United States back then, what would you have found? A mix of bright dreams and harsh realities, a nation in transition, its heartbeat matching the frantic pace of change. The world of Ronald Reagan and the economy of the American dream. Picture a grand stage, where the curtains rise on a new actor ready to change the course of history. In 1981, Ronald Reagan, the former Hollywood actor with a charming smile and unmistakable voice, took the presidency of the United States. After years of political uncertainty and economic crises, the nation saw in him a promise of rebirth. Reagan was not just a president, he was a symbol of renewal, an almost mythical figure who spoke directly to the American people's hearts. His slogan, "Let's make America great again," echoed across the country as a rallying cry against what many saw as the nation's decline. But what exactly did this promised greatness mean? What was behind his vision of a renewed American dream? The beginning of a new era. The 1980s setting was dramatic. The United States had just come out of a deep recession, inflation was high, and trust in government was at alarming lows. The country needed change, and Reagan presented himself as the leader who could bring it. Promising tax cuts, a reduction of the federal government's role, and strengthening of the free market, he seemed to be the answer for a weary America. Throughout his presidency, Reagan implemented his famous economic policy known as Reaganomics. It was based on three main pillars: tax cuts, deregulation of businesses, and increased military spending. The goal? To stimulate the economy through the trickle-down effect, the belief that by favoring the rich and large corporations, benefits would eventually reach the poor. The economic event, the illusion of prosperity. With significant tax cuts, especially for the wealthiest, investors and business owners had more money to spend. Large corporations expanded, and the stock market experienced meteoric growth. The media, vibrant in its economic reporting, showed an America flourishing. The American dream seemed more accessible than ever. People dreamed of owning homes, driving the latest cars, and enjoying the luxury of consuming what advertising promised was essential for happiness. Suburbs expanded, and families built their castles with white picket fences and manicured lawns. In shopping malls, consumption became a form of identity. With the rise of big brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, and Apple, the desire to own was not just about the product itself but what it represented: success, status, and belonging. Reagan became a beloved figure. The economy seemed to follow the script of the American dream, and the country felt invincible. Reagan's words about economic freedom, traditional values, and faith in the market became a mantra. But behind this facade of prosperity, another reality slowly began to emerge. The hidden face of the American dream. While the upper class and big corporations enjoyed the fruits of Reagan's economic policies, the reality for the working class and the poor was very different. The promise of prosperity for all did not materialize as expected. Social inequality in the United States grew exponentially. Those outside the circles of the wealthy and large companies began to feel the effects of a system that, although based on free market freedom, left many behind. The federal deficit skyrocketed. The government, by increasing military spending, further strained public coffers. The dream of unlimited growth started to show its cost. And in the heart of major cities, a new plague spread: crack cocaine. Drugs, fueled by poverty and neglect, began devastating vulnerable communities, especially among African American and Latino populations. The middle class, once the pillar of American prosperity, started to realize that the trickle-down effect of Reaganomics hadn't reached them. The cost of living rose while wages stagnated. Many felt the dream of homeownership and financial security slipping further away. Underscore 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 underscore. The myth of greatness. Contrary to many expectations, what became clear during Reagan's years was that the American dream was not equally accessible to everyone. The myth of a great nation, where anyone could rise to the top through hard work and perseverance, began to crumble under the weight of growing inequality. The system seemed to reward the richest and most powerful, while the lower classes and middle class struggled to stay afloat. America in the 80s under Reagan was like a great golden facade, bright, shiny, but full of invisible cracks for those who couldn't afford to live center stage. For many, the American dream was something reserved for a few, while the rest were pushed to the margins of a system that appeared to work more for the rich than for the people. Underscore 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 underscore. Reagan's legacy and the dream that persisted. Though Reagan's promises generated economic growth and an image of prosperity, the impact of his presidency would be felt for decades. Tax cuts for the wealthy, deregulation, and increased military spending shaped the economy but also deepened social divisions that persist today. In the years that followed, the world would witness the effects of this promised greatness. The collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, which he so eagerly sought, would be celebrated as victories. But in the land of dreams, many promises of equality and prosperity remained unfulfilled. Thus, America in the 1980s became etched in the collective memory as a time of both brilliance and disillusionment, utopia and inequality. Reagan may have restored the country's confidence in its own power, but the real question remained: who truly lived the American dream? underscore 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 underscore. Technology that changed the world while dividing generations. The 1980s were also a decade of massive technological leaps, where the boundaries of what was possible expanded at a breathtaking pace. The personal computer, once a vague concept, became a staple in American homes. Apple launched the Macintosh, and Microsoft began establishing itself as the giant that would later transform the digital world. For many, the computer became not only a work tool but a symbol of modernity and power. Younger generations, immersed in a culture of digital consumption, were increasingly connected, but in a world that didn't yet fully understand the implications of its own creation. Meanwhile, the cell phone, or more accurately, the mobile phone, was gaining traction, though its high cost meant it was still a luxury for a few. On TV screens, technology made an equally revolutionary impact. Shows like Miami Vice, with its sleek style and iconic soundtrack, or The Cosby Show, which offered an optimistic view of a middle-class African-American family, brought pop culture to new heights. Videocassette players became coveted items, allowing families to watch favorite movies at home, creating the first generation of home movie buffs. Underscore 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 underscore. The suburban lifestyle and the rise of consumerism. In the suburbs, everything seemed perfect. It was the decade of the quest for homeownership, with well-kept yards and two-car garages. The 80s painted a vision of America united by prosperity. But don't be fooled, this vision was a fantasy for many. While the dream of the perfect home was accessible to those on the rise, for others, cities became battlefields between progress and poverty. In pop culture, consumerism was booming. Store shelves were filled with innovative products and electronic gadgets promising a simpler, more fun life. Sony's Walkman, a portable music player, symbolized a new concept of personal freedom. The youth of the 80s identified with this new ethos of individualism and materialism. Vibrant colors, shoulder pads, mullets, and lycra clothing became symbols of a generation chasing immediate pleasure but also a distinctive style. Advertising transformed, flooding streets and TV screens. Brands like Nike and Coca-Cola became more than products. They became symbols of status, style, and even identity. Youth grew up believing happiness could be bought, and best of all, found on mall shelves. The fight for civil rights and the reality of social challenges. But not everything was glamour and optimism. The 1980s were also a time of confrontation. The civil rights movement, though having won significant victories in previous decades, still met resistance across the country. Racial inequality remained a pressing issue, with tensions running high in cities, especially during protests against police brutality and poor living conditions in marginalized communities. On women's rights, despite some wins, like Geraldine Ferraro becoming the first female vice presidential candidate, much work remained. The fight for workplace equality, abortion rights, and against domestic violence continued. Though women were gaining more space in corporate America, sexism and gender inequality were still tangible realities. Another invisible battle was raging, the HIV/AIDS epidemic, emerging in the late 80s as a relentless and devastating threat, especially within the LGBTQ+ community. The stigma surrounding the disease, initially associated with certain social groups, led to a slow and failed government response, putting many lives at risk and spreading fear among the most vulnerable. The legacy of the 1980s, from dreams to challenges. The 1980s were a decade of transformation and contradiction. Years of promises for progress, but also shadows that couldn't be ignored. As the country embraced technology and consumption like never before, social and economic issues created deep fissures, revealing that behind the shine of the American dream, many people were still left on the margins. This era of excess and excessive faith in the market economy left a legacy both admired and criticized in the decades to come. For some, the 80s were the last great era of American optimism, where the future seemed bright and full of possibilities. For others, it was a time of alienation and widening disparities. What was it like to live in America in the 1980s? It was to live at the height of consumption, in the glow of technological success, and to the beat of music and pop culture. But it was also to live in the shadow of inequality, the fight for rights, and in a country seemingly heading toward an uncertain future. Whatever your experience of the 80s, the memories of that decade remain etched as one of the most intense periods in American history, a decade of excess, innovation, and social dilemmas that still